I would not have been able to touch and impact all those people's lives if I just dismissed it and say, well, that doesn't make any sense to me, so I'm not going to do it. And a lot of times, your purpose won't make any sense to you. You wouldn't have Oprah if she said, I'm some young Black girl from Mississippi who's going to put me on TV to listen to stories and the impact that she's made on people's lives. And the music that Michael Jackson was able to create, because he heard different beats and rhythms in his head that nobody never heard before. But he didn't say, well, that doesn't sound like the music anybody else is playing. Let me not play that. So this is what you're given to do, and you should follow through and do it no matter how much it doesn't make sense to you, because this world is waiting on you for exactly the uniqueness that you bring to it.
Hey, family. This is Che Willis coming back with another episode of Wealth is a Journey podcast. Guys, this is episode 30. 30 episodes in, and we are in for a treat today. When I started this podcast surrounding wealth building, for those who are new, we're not just talking about wealth. We're talking about growth. We're talking about mindset. We're talking about health. All things surrounding wealth building. And today, we are going to be talking to Miss Akyiaa Azula. She is a family member of mine. We are a part of the morning meetup. And I met Miss Azula not too long ago. I was just on her podcast, which I'm going to allow her to talk about. And we had a blast. So I have her coming onto my platform so we can continue to talk about money and wealth building. Miss Akyiaa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Shay. And Miss Akyiaa makes me feel kind of old.
My bad. That's not what I was trying to do.
Just call me Akyiaa.
Yeah, I got you. So, Akyiaa, we are in the morning meetup, which is a group of entrepreneurs run by David Shands. And we just talk. We get on a call every Monday through Friday. We read books together. We talk about different topics that entrepreneurs go through on a day in, day out basis. Mindset things, money things that we can just make us better entrepreneurs. So that's how we met. And Miss Akyiaa, so you're a full-time entrepreneur, is that correct?
Yes, I've been for quite some time. Let me see. I opened my acupuncture practice back in 2001. Okay. I closed the door beginning of 2018. And since then, I've been doing remote work with a system that I use called Creation that help clients from all over the world. So I've been doing that now since about 2013. I started teaching that system to different people. And since 2010, I've been doing that. So it's been a number of years that, but one of the things that I have to say about the entrepreneurial journey, if you think of it like a flower or a garden, it unfolds. When I first started, I had a regular clinical practice treating pain management, and stress management as an acupuncturist. That unfolded into me doing more mind-body work because people had certain blocks that just needles and herbal formulas couldn't get rid of. So it was more than just a physical issue with them. It was more of a mind, how their mind and their emotions affected them. And then once I got really good at treating patients and getting really good results by adding that to my practice, it evolved into more of an intuitive spiritual work with them also. That, people came in and then we got into the whole concept of purpose. Because people, I found a lot of times when people were sick, it was like they were not following their path. They were too afraid to follow that purpose. So I really think a lot of people that I meet now, why this draw towards entrepreneurship is that they feel that they could create their own path, be more creative, and maybe fulfill their purpose. To be honest with you, I don't think entrepreneurship is for everyone. Some people are better served by probably having a job rather than entrepreneurship. I'm not trying to put anybody down, but it could be a scary journey.
Yeah.
Because when you're an entrepreneur, your money is not guaranteed.
Correct.
You could have a slow month. You got bills are still showing up. The money is looking kind of funny that month.
Yeah.
It's not for the weak of heart. I could tell you that. You could go through a lot of changes. Some things you think is going to work, won't work. So there's a lot of things that if you're not a person, like let's say if you're a person that really like stability is like a big thing for you,
Yeah.
I would tell you to rethink entrepreneurship because a very unstable kind of it's a very unstable enterprise. I mean, you will get to a point where you become stable, but those first few years was rocky. And
yeah, I think I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. You brought up something that was huge for me, and I'm 44 years old now, and like you said, it's like a flower. I think life is the same way. Like the more you continue to go on your path, whatever that path is, in my opinion, God reveals to you different things that will make life easier for you if you go along with the thing that you're hearing on the inside, in my opinion.
yes.
So I think for entrepreneurs, it's easier to be an entrepreneur once you know your path, meaning knowing your purpose. And
Yes.
it helps you to be an entrepreneur, full-time entrepreneur, part-time entrepreneur, whatever the case may be, if you know your purpose, because when you're banging your head up against the wall of different challenges that you face along the way, because there are going to be challenges, it's not going to be $1 million days and different things of that nature that you hear about the gurus and stuff like that talking. You have to build up to be that. But the bumps in the road that you face, it's easier to go through those things when you know your purpose.
I agree with that. You have to, I remember our mentor on the morning meetup, David Shands, he used the word and he said, you have to have a conviction. It's one thing to have this desire and I want to fulfill my purpose, and that may feel very exciting, or like, oh, this is like this is the new trend, or this is the new thing, everybody's talking about their purpose. That's all well and good, but without the conviction, I think in the hard times, because I've had some rough times in the business, during the hard times, what kept me going was that I knew that the patients that I was seeing or the students that I was teaching, to see them light up.
Mm-hmm.
When they got their treatment and they were feeling better, or the students, you could just see the light bulb goes off in their face, but when they got the concept and I got it, I could do it, that meant a lot to me. Like you were talking about the young men, like the last time we spoke, you were talking about making sure that these young men are more financially literate and they don't come through the same stuff we come through, this whole taboo of never talking about money and finances, which we'll get into some of this relationships we have built with money.
Yeah.
And then seeing that and then being, like you have a conviction
Yeah.
about it, that I want to teach my son and my nephews and their friends and their peer group, they need to have a different relationship with money than what we had growing up. It's that level of conviction that move you forward. Like take for instance, I was at a event, a workshop this past weekend, and they had some vendors outside, and a few of the vendors were children. So the gentleman that ran the workshop, he has a group of young boys and he's teaching them entrepreneurship. So he gave them boots and, they were selling. So there was a young boy, I walked in very, very early, and there was a young boy at a table and he had like these little bottle of shoe shine thing, like a spray that you clean your shoes with or your sneakers with. And, I asked him about, oh, you're selling something. And he was like, yeah, I'm selling these. And he looked at me smiling. He says, it's $7. And I was like, okay. I'm like, why are you selling it for $7? He says, well, it's a small bottle and it's 2 ounces. That was his rationale. I was like, okay. I said, why don't you sell it for 10? And because I've sold things, and I'm like, he's got to give everybody back $3. That's my mind's already going. From being a business, I gotta make $3 change for everybody that comes and buys one. So I'm like, why don't you just sell it for 10?
Yeah.
It's easy. That was how my mind was working. And he was like, but it's only 2 ounces. So I was like, who cares? I said,
Yeah.
you're cute. You're a cute little kid. I think he was about 7, 8 years old. I said, you're a cute kid. All you have to do is smile, ding, and say $10, please, and they'll give it to you. And he's like, oh. And I said, why don't you just sell out the whole thing? And he was like, no, I can't sell out because I'll be here for the whole weekend. If I sell out today, what am I going to do the rest of the weekend? So I'm bringing up this story about this relationship with money. And what happened was that he decided to sell it for 10.
Mm.
And I said, well, there's this energy of selling out things. I said, everything in the universe operates on energy. And we just finished reading The Alchemist, where they talked about this whole energy in the universe and how to tap into this energy and, how to flow with this energy. And I said, there's an energy of sold out. So you could sell everything out. And I said, if you want to stretch it out to selling it out in 3 days, stretch it out. You could sell it all today. It doesn't, whatever you decide. And there was something in his face. Like all of a sudden, it was like he got it. That's why I said this conviction. Like his eyes brightened up in his face, like, wow, I could sell out everything. My boy sold out. This was Friday. He sold out by Saturday, right after lunch.
Let's
And
go.
our friend Talik from our group, he was the last person to purchase. So I got to witness his first sale, who was me. His last sale was Talik, a member of our group.
Yeah.
And and Talik was like, little man had it. I wanted to support him. And I knew people, you see a kid doing something, you want to support them. But what really, like I said, you have this conviction.
Yeah.
What really, like, I learned wonderful things this weekend, but the thing that stood out for me was that little boy. He sold out everything, even got pre-orders.
That's dope.
And he didn't have anything else to do. And I guess, the people that when you're at an event, the people walking around with the walkie-talkie, somehow he got himself a walkie-talkie and he got a way to hold it onto his pants. And he was just swaggering through that place like, look at that. And, when you see things like that, it's like, that's what it's all about. It's like moments like that that give you the conviction to say, yes, what I'm doing is changing somebody's life. So that little boy, that was his dad wrote that was his first time selling anything. He never been, because he's young. He's never done this before. But if that's his first impression, that's his first encounter, he'll be unstoppable. He'll become a beast.
Correct. And now he has an expectation, which is huge also. You expect, and then things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. So when people say, well, what motivates you, even with all the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, I really feel it's that conviction that you have that's going to motivate you. And trust me, that motivates you way more than the money.
Correct.
I mean, some people are motivated by money, but it's not enough a lot of the times.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the fact that you, for him, helped him, because the thing that I love most about what I do, as far as like helping people financially, is pulling that veil from over their eyes, the blinders that they have, because they're only focused on thinking one way. They're only focused on doing things one way. And they're like, oh, I didn't know I could do that, because you pointed them in a different direction. You just a degree or two into another direction. And now you're setting him on a path that's going to probably set him up to be a beast, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, his whole relationship with business, money. I mean, he's 7 or 8, and I think his dad wrote that he had 62 bottles plus the pre-orders. So, I mean, for a kid to make probably close to $1,000, maybe in a day and a half, basically. That's a whole different mindset that he would have over money, rather than saying, I can't afford that, we don't have it. He's not having that relationship to money.
Sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So with the business that you're in now, you started out doing acupuncture and you had your own firm. You had your own, I'm sorry, your own
Clinic.
facility. Clinic, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, yeah. And then you moved into your creations business is what exactly?
Okay. I'm glad you asked. So my whole thing was figuring out why people did not heal.
Okay.
So acupuncture, okay, I could get you to a certain point, and about 85% of my clientele, acupuncture, give you some formulas to take, you're good to go. That 15%, so I'm like, like Jesus had you go hunt for the lost sheep.
Yeah.
I have a lost sheep syndrome.
Okay.
And the lost sheep is very curious. It's like everybody else is fine. What's wrong with you? It's not like what's wrong with you in a negative sense, but like, why didn't that work for you and it worked for them?
Sure.
So then that led me deeper to look at the relationship people were having with their environment, with their mind, their body, and those connections. Because sometimes you may be sick, but there's stress going on in your home,
Mm.
or there's stress at your job, or maybe there's stress in your family. You have someone who's very ill, or maybe your child is in trouble, and those stressors, people don't really think about it. I think people make more of that association nowadays, but we're talking about like early 2000s. People did not associate that the things that's happening in my life is making me ill, physically ill.
Mm.
When they came to see me, the regular treatment was like, oh, you take this medication, or you go to the chiropractor, or you go to the acupuncturist, they stick some needles in you, and it's a physical thing because I'm in physical pain. But the real reason was that all of these other factors that was happening in their life had gotten to the point where it's making them physically ill. They were in physical pain.
Mm.
And
Yep.
so they will go and get treated, and nothing was working for them. They come to see me and they will feel better for a short time, but then it'll come back because we never addressed what was causing it. Was all this stress that they were having in different areas and different levels of their life, whether it's money stress, relationship stress, business stress, something's going on with my family, my parent is sick, whatever, my child is sick. It's like all of that impact and pressure was happening to them. And nobody was really addressing that. So I was one of the first people that started addressing that, because my curiosity is like, why is this person not healing? And I would even go and consult with some of my old professors from China, because these were people that were doing acupuncture. I had one teacher, she was doing acupuncture back in the 60s, where
Wow.
she was what we call the barefoot doctor. So in China, she would, you worked for the government, because everybody works for the government in China. So she would be assigned to work in the hospital as a doctor, and she started when she was like 16, straight out of high school. So they would send her to work for the hospital for 6 months, and then the other 6 months she would go to the rural countryside and work. So she learned all this folk medicine, and she learned a lot. So she got both sides, the Western side as well as the traditional folk medicine side of medicine. So she was this brilliant teacher that, I mean, she was like a walking encyclopedia when it came to the medicine. So I would even go and consult with her. I'm like, okay, I did this formula, I did these points, I did all of this patient's still not getting better. And she'll give me recommendations. I'll go and do that. And like I said, she was absolutely brilliant. And that still didn't work. So I'm like, something is the reason why this patient's not getting better. And like I said, I got more curious of why they were not healing.
Hmm.
If you heal, they're like, yeah, good, I'm glad. Thumbs up, get out of here, because I want to focus on why this one's not healing. So that was my attitude towards it. And that led me into doing a lot of research. So I started researching things like the relationship between the mind and the body, human consciousness, your spirituality, your soul. I started doing the research and building this bulk of research about all of these things, because I found it was on those levels that people were being impacted and that wasn't being addressed.
Yeah. I can see how that could help because you have a headache and what do? Oh, let me get an aspirin.
Mhm.
Okay, or I got a cold. Let me take some cough syrup or whatever it is, but all you're doing is suppressing the issue and not actually addressing the what's causing it. If
Yeah,
you're stressed out about something, your back might get tightened up. and it might stay like that, but you don't know
A
why. So
long time.
popping pills or not pop pills, but just taking medicines that's going to make you feel better, but you're not addressing why. So I can see how what you do
Yeah.
can be very helpful.
And then if you think about it, like you did this, because that's normally how people react to some kind of stressor. They tighten up.
Yeah.
And so imagine that you're staying in that state for years. So I would find that there's some triggering event that happened and they stay like this for years and don't even realize that that becomes their norm. And because that strain, that physical strain that their body's under, it could only take but so much. And your body starts letting you know, like, I can't do this no more. I can't stay like this forever. So it starts causing you pain. And, I've had people to the point where they've had surgeries because they can't figure out why they're in pain. They spend all this money and have surgery and they come back. I'm still in pain. I had the surgery. I'm still there. So, I mean, it's to that length. That's why I said I was very curious about that group that just could heal.
Wow.
And
So
that's how I felt this body of work. So creation, to answer your question, creation came from me looking at the mind, the body, the emotion, and consciousness. Because I started doing that, I was able to intuitively, they call it a medical intuitive. I was able to intuitively look at people. Have you ever seen the movie The Black Panther?
yeah.
Okay. So the first one, right? There was a scene in the movie where his sister, she was the scientist or the doctor, and the guy, the white guy he got injured, and she had the screen and she was looking into his body. It's like this
Yep.
virtual screen, and she could see which organs were damaged and what was affected, and she was adjusting it. So when someone comes to me as a medical intuitive, that's what it looks like to me. I
Got
could
it.
look at the person and then I'm seeing, and the part of their body that's affected kind of lights up. So I know, okay, it's your kidney, it's your left kidney, and it's the lower part of the left, because you could see it in that detail. So I had that skill to do that. And over the years of seeing thousands of patients, I developed that, because like going to the gym, you develop a muscle. So it's
Sure.
no different than developing a muscle. If you do something over and over and over, you get really good at it. So I was able to do that. And then it went from just seeing what was wrong internally with them to knowing why they had that problem to begin with. And then I found out there was a lot of spiritual causes. We hear people talk about generational curses, and it's not really a curse, it's more of a generational conditioning or pattern, because it's passed down through the genes.
Sure.
So you inherit some of this stuff. And families do things a certain way. Your family do things, like we talk about your wife and you have two different families, there's a different set of values, you do things differently. So it's this conditioning, this patterning that we have throughout the generation. So it's not really a curse, it's really breaking the pattern. Because a curse is, from all the spiritual readings that I've done and teach, the reason why I don't call it a curse, because a curse is a very specific thing. A curse is when someone curses you. They either could do something nefarious to you, whether it's witchcraft, black magic, whatever we want to call it, or like in the Eastern European countries, everybody has the little blue eyes because it's the evil eye thing. So people could wish bad and project bad at you. So that's more of what we would call a curse. So from my medical background, we call things what it is, because if you have the wrong diagnosis, you get the wrong treatment and it could be deadly. So that's why I'm really specific about, no, this is what we're talking about, and this is really what it is, if that makes sense.
No,
So
I
that's
agree.
really specific about words. So a curse is someone has done something to you, and it may go throughout your lineage, versus a pattern that this is just a form of behavior and conditioning and socialization within a family, and it might not be a good pattern.
Correct. No, I agree. And it's no, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, I'm fine.
I was just gonna say two things I wanted to bring up. One thing, words are very, very important, and that can be something that can be passed down. I was just talking to somebody the other day, and they were talking about my depression, my this or that. And I'm like, yo, it's not yours. But if you believe that it's yours, then you're going to carry it. It's going to be yours.
Yes.
you're going to be depressed. Or my stupid car. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, you could say my car serves me well, or this car is good to me. And if you say my stupid car, then that's what you'll believe your car to be, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the thing is. But words are very important. And just like that, generationally can be passed down, because if your parents say it, then you'll probably end up saying it. Just like
Children may say, yeah,
with finances, the same thing. If you're passing down those negative emotions around money, and don't ask me for those sneakers because I'm not going to get it, then you're passing that down to your kid. Then your kid, when he grows up, when he has kids or she has kids, they're probably going to end up saying the same thing, even if they do have the money, because that's the pattern that you talked about,
yeah,
that I think a lot of us fall into, because I was doing it too. And I
yeah.
had like,
And that's the reason why I said I like to identify things, because being a clinician, your diagnosis has to be on point, because you're going to give the person the wrong treatment. And it could, like I said, the wrong treatment could be fatal, because if you don't need this particular medication, but your diagnosis is wrong, that could kill a person. I mean, that doesn't happen in the world of acupuncture. It's like you know, you're sticking a very thin needle into somebody in a muscle. You're not going to kill anybody by that,
sure.
but you can if you give them the wrong herbal formula, because it works similar to like medicine. It could be poisonous to the person, just like you have fatal things if you get the wrong medication. So that's why I'm really specific when I'm labeling things. So and normally when people like say we think about generational curses, because that seems to be a big buzzword everywhere. And people are like, okay, we're going to pray it out. We're going to ask. I'm like, no, not you can't pray out a pattern. Once you recognize and realize, hey, it's a pattern and we could break this pattern or we could change this pattern, that's more effective than calling a curse and we're going to pray about it.
Now, what I would say is, if you do that, I think the person needs to recognize that it's a pattern, and then you
Yeah.
guys can believe together that the pattern will be broken.
Yes.
I believe that.
Break
Um,
the pattern.
correct. Yeah. So
But the prescription, the reason why I say pray, because prayer, you're dealing more on a spiritual realm.
correct.
And a curse is done more on a spiritual realm also.
Mm,
So if you're praying and it's truly a curse, you could probably break the curse by doing more things that are ritualistic like prayer. But if it's a pattern that it's just a learned behavior, a
that is,
prayer won't help change that. It's the person needs to be aware and recognize that I have this pattern and I have the power to change this pattern by changing, like you're changing patterns within your family by doing what you're doing with your kids. You're changing the pattern because you recognize, hey, this pattern is here and it's not good.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I mean is the difference between why I'm very specific about what I call things.
Yeah. No, I get it. So that is, I have a hard time with that, because I know in my life specifically with my dad, I'll just briefly just go over that real quick. He drank for probably since I was maybe 5 years old until I was maybe 14 or so. But I remember my mom specifically praying for him to stop drinking. Now, with that, the reason that he stopped was because the doctor gave him a diagnosis saying, hey, if you don't stop, you will die.
Yeah.
Now, I believe, this is my belief, that the prayer mixed with his willingness for his eyes to be opened up, that he needed to stop, that came together, and then he stopped. So
Yeah.
when you
And
say
being
that
told
prayer,
stop or you die is also a big.
correct, yeah, it's huge, but you still have to make the
Yeah, I agree.
decision. Yeah,
I agree because the prayer does bring in a positive energy. Because the reason why I say it wouldn't be the only thing that you would do.
sure.
Because
Okay,
some
got it.
people
That's
think
fair.
I just pray and then that takes care of
That's fair.
everything. It
Yeah.
has to be a combination. Because, like, for instance, they have what they call the prayer study. Because, like I said, I nerdy. Miriam calls me very curious and inquisitive, but there's a thing called a prayer study that was done. A hospital, I think the hospital was in LA. They had a prayer group in Cincinnati. So none of these people knew one another. And so it was patients that had open heart surgery. These patients, some of the patients in that cohort were prayed for, and some were not. The ones that got prayed for, and nobody knew who got prayed for because it was in two different cities. Nobody knew who they were praying for, and the doctors didn't know who got prayed for. But when they did the final outcomes of this study, the people that got prayed for healed faster, had less complications, their hospital stays were shorter. So yes, it works. And so the combination that your mother was asking for, that intercession and that help, does work. So I'm not saying it doesn't work at all. That's not what I'm saying. It does. But what the problem is that people feel, well, that's all I have to do. You have to have a combination. Your dad hearing this like, hey, you were 14, so he had a young family, he had young children. And the thought of, hey, I'm going to die and leave my kids, and this, was like a wake-up call for him.
Right. Yeah.
Along with the fact that your mother had been praying for something to happen. And sometimes the prayer is like, this is, this wake-up call had to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And
I think want to change his life.
Correct. And it's like faith without works. Like you have to have faith, and then you have to work at the same time, which I think is a big thing that is missing as well. Like when we're talking about anything, whether it's life or family, finances, whatever, like we feel like we can pray things away, but you have to act and do at the same time. Which leads me to my next question for you. You said something how you help people get unstuck. With money specifically, since it's Wealth is a Journey podcast, we'll talk about that. But how do you do that specifically with money? Like an example.
So with money, I do the system called creation because I'm realized I haven't explained what it is. So creation came to me through a meditation. I was doing a meditation one morning. This was back in 2003. And I'm sitting in meditation. And a lot of times when I'm doing meditation, I go so deep into a meditation that I can actually like not only like do medical intuitive stuff where I could see the organs and what's happening internally with the person. I could actually also hear. So I heard like you will be teaching this creation, and I had no idea what creation. This is 2003. I had no idea what creation was. And the only reason why I remember it was 2003, because right after I had that meditation, that movie, The Secret, came out. I don't know if you're familiar with that. The Secret, like everybody, the visualization, and you do this positive thought and, and all of that. So that was like a really big movie that came out during that time called The Secret. And I watched the movie, The Secret, because it was shortly, maybe a week or two after this meditation. And I looked at The Secret and I said, I wonder if that's creation. And I just heard in my head, no, that's not creation. So I was like, okay, went on, came across some other things. People are doing all this, so now we're around 2006, 7, 8-ish, around that time. And it was like this big to do about manifestation. That was like the big buzzword back then. Oh, you could visualize and manifest this and manifest that. So I looked at all this manifestation and I'm thinking, okay, is this creation? And I heard, no, that's not creation. So I was like, okay. So fast forward to around 2010, I'm working in this workshop and I'm doing this technique where you actually, it's not Reiki, you actually touch people's heads and you may say what we call is a clearing. Like like something will come up and you clear it. And I didn't really think about creation then. But years ago, when I was about 22, 23 years old, I was like top of my class in acupuncture because I was always like academically, I was always very, very sharp. So
Mm.
top of my class in acupuncture. And I had a friend. She was a very accurate intuitive, and we were at her home one day sitting on her couch, and she just looked at me and she said, "You won't be doing acupuncture. You'll be touching people's heads." And I'm like, what, 22? And I'm like, touching people's heads. And she said, but when you touch their heads, they'll feel very like relaxed and serene, and they'll feel like they had a profound experience. And then when they come back from it, they look like they're in a trance, but they're not in a trance, because I'm not hypnotizing them or anything. They're not in a trance, but they'll feel like they're in a trance, but they're not in a trance. They may even look like they're asleep, but they're not asleep. And then after you do this, touching their heads, they'll come back and go like, wow, things will just start to change for them.
Mm.
And I looked at her and I said, no, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, why would I be touching people on their head? Because
Sure.
I'm an acupuncture student, A+ in the class. I'm like, she's just telling me that because she's jealous. She only makes B's, I make A's. She's telling me this nonsense. Like, why would I touch people's heads? I'm not a minister. And the only thing I could relate to that was, like when the ministers, they do like this, hit people
Yep.
on their head and they fall down. So I'm thinking she's talking about something like that, because who touches people's heads?
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense. So that
Yeah.
was when I was 20, 22, 23. So fast forward to 2010, I'm doing this, and I had a class coming up, and I had some people come into town, and they were coming from out of state to take this intuitive class because people wanted to. They said, Akyiaa, you get good results with your patients. Could you teach us? So I started teaching people how to, use their intuition. So I have this class coming up, and I'm like, I got to really teach these people. I need something else I could do. And all of a sudden, I don't know what dawned on me to say, those things that I've been doing when I touch people's head, is that creation? And they said, yes, finally, she got it. It took long enough because we're looking at a span of over 20+ years have passed.
Wow.
By from the time she told me about it to when I finally came to the realization that, oh, that's what creation is. So it's this process that I do. I can't tell you how it works because I have no idea. But what I know is that I've been given these areas to touch on people's heads. And when I touch those areas on their heads, and I don't even have to be in the same room, I could just see myself touching, because most of my clients now are remote. Like the one I just hung up from is, he's in another state. And I can do that even visually in my mind, just do that with people. And I don't know why it shifts their energy, because all of a sudden they go, like she said, they go from, I'm jittery, I'm nervous, I'm anxious about this, to they'll just calm down after I do that with them. It sounds odd. I'm looking at your face like
No, I'm walking with you, trying to see where you're going, and I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you asked me what it is. So that's basically what it is. I don't have to physically touch their head because, like I said, most of my clients, they're not in my home with me, and I do a lot of remote work. But then what I notice when I do that, I'm thinking, okay, this is a lot simpler than trying to put together herbal formula, which takes a lot more brain work to put together. And I'm thinking, I don't know if anything's going to happen because it's too simple.
Yeah.
And people would come back and say, wow, you did that. And I got the promotion on the job. I've, been there for 15 years, been passed over every year. And I didn't just get one promotion. Within 30 days, I got 2 promotions. I was like, okay. Or somebody will come back and say to me, you know what? All of a sudden, I got this job. I've been hunting for a job for 5 months and nobody has called me back. And you did this like 30 minutes after you were done. Everything just opened up. So I had this guy came and said to me, I don't know what you did, but it feels like the floodgates just opened up and everything started to run smoothly in my life. So the reason why it's called creation, it wasn't so much about me clearing up the patterns that I saw when I was, doing these various points on their heads. What happened was that I had to clear it up, but the real thing was about what the person was here to create in this world. And that's why it's called creation. So the only reason why you're not able to create what you are here to create is because you have all these things that's blocking you and distracting you from that. So my job, the reason why I'm these areas on their head that I focus on seems to kind of open up those areas and get rid of all those blocks and distractions. And I tell people, I say, it's not really a block, it's more of a distraction. Because if you're supposed to be over here doing this over here, but instead you're busy with all of this, it's nothing more than a distraction. But it's like drama, it takes up so much of your time and energy, and it feels so real because you're caught up in this drama, similar to like the story we were reading, The Alchemist, that you could get caught up into all this drama and never get to who you truly need to be.
Correct.
And so that to me is what creation does.
Got it. So I in my head, I'm thinking that you're talking to people and you're getting them clear on what they're stuck on, but you're actually visualizing yourself being there and then clearing them up.
And then clearing it up, whatever comes up. And normally what comes up for the person is not something that they're aware of. Because, and it made sense to me that they're not aware of this, because the stuff that you're aware of, you could handle. Like you said, your dad came to this awareness and this realization, your mom prayed, so she was able to shift a lot of those dynamics and energy that was happening with him through her prayers. He went to the doctor, he got the news and changed. Yeah. Right. So the same thing with creation, it seems to shift things in people. And the things that I get to tell them about, they're not thinking about that. It's like something that's hidden from view. They're not aware of it at all.
Wow.
So that's where my intuition comes in. It could kind of laser point, this is what the real issue is. And that's how I got to, like, all the drama and all the trauma people have around money also would come up, because it had nothing to do with, let's take, for instance, I had this couple, and I call them my brilliant but broke couple, two of the most brilliant people I've ever met. He was in the computer industry, one of the original people that set up IT when computers were first, being connected in networks and stuff. He was one of the main people that started in all of that industry.
Okay.
They were very wealthy because of the industry that he was in. They lived in a mansion, 4 luxury cars, the whole 9 yards. The wife was in banking, like wealth division and all of this type of stuff. And then the dot-com bubble burst in 2000. It burst. Mm-hmm. They lost all their wealth, their cars, everything like vanished within 2 weeks. They had to sleep in a car. Everything went that quick. Yeah. So they went from mansion to sleeping in their car to renting a room in a trap house so they could take a shower. And eventually what happened is that I think her dad had a house that they rented out to students. So they lived in the loft and the students lived downstairs, the college students. And they, so this is this married couple, and they lived like this for at least a good 15 years. You would think that they're both brilliant, they're both pretty smart people, and you think, well, he should be able to get back on his feet. Sure. But have you seen things? So I say you're dealing with people with finances. You've seen people that go through some kind of trauma like that and can't recover from that trauma. Some people bounce back and some people can't recover. But what was going on with this gentleman is that he felt less than a man, because all of a sudden he could not support, but he never processed that he didn't feel like a man, because now he's living in his father-in-law house like a college student up in the loft, renting out the thing, and they still can't make ends meet because of that trauma that he went through around money and losing everything and not being able to recover from it. So I started doing creation with him. And like I said, I'm in Florida, they're in California, they're up in San Francisco, in Silicon Valley area. And I'm doing the work with him, never physically met the guy. And within 6 weeks, he started having so much work, he couldn't even keep up with the work that he had. He had all this money coming in. He even took his wife on a honeymoon. She called me back. She said, Akyiaa, I was so nervous. He's spending money. And he was like, babe, I got this. I'm the man. And I'm like, and she's sitting there, can we really spend this? And he's like, I got you. I got it, babe. I got it. But he felt so proud of himself that he could do this again. and provide for his wife on this level. But if somebody had asked him, he would say, well, I lost my fortune and this. He was aware of that, but he didn't realize how emasculating that was for him. That piece he didn't have. And he didn't know why. It was until we found it and cleared it up that his whole life changed. Last time I spoke with them a few years back, and this was a few years after I worked with them, they were coming back from a vacation in Hawaii. So they went from that to that by finding out what actually is stopping you from being who you really are. So that's the work that I do with creation. And that's why I said money comes up, because people, it's not about physical money, it's about all these other things that's going on with us.
What's going on, family? This is Che Willis from Wealth is a Journey podcast. I don't know if you guys know, but I help families who are living paycheck to paycheck live the life that they want to live through budgeting and investing. If this is you or you know somebody, go to wealthisajourney.com to book a free discovery call to see if we're a good fit to work with each other for either budgeting, or if you're a beginner investor, again, you can book a free discovery call to see if we're a good fit to work with each other. Again, wealthisajourney.com, wealthisajourney.com. Let's get back to the episode. Yeah. And I know you were telling me before we started recording that you were working on something called 17 ways to F up your money and how to fix it.
Yeah, and
which I thought was very intriguing. So yeah. what I wanted to ask you, with working with, because I'm assuming that you're working with mid to high net worth individuals at this point in your career.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So
I would say that's the bulk of the clientele that I've had is mid to high level net worth people.
So what do you find are, let's start with one. What would you say your number one way that people F up their money?
Okay. And I'll tell you what, I could never come up with a title like that. Like I said, I hear things. I woke up one morning and I heard 17 ways you F up your money and how to fix it. I went, what?
Yeah.
Like literally, you ever woke up and then you get this idea, it just pops in your head?
Yep.
It was like that. It was that. It was
when you're done, I'm going to tell you my story about what I heard and how it happened. But go ahead.
Yeah, you just hear things, and when you tell people, and most people have those experiences, but they think it's odd when you say, "Yeah, I just heard it one morning and I wrote it down, and that's the title." So I had taught this class called the Money Class to a group of acupuncture students predominantly, because they had this struggle around asking for money. I was like, you can't have a business and you're afraid to ask people for money.
That's a fact.
But you have a lot of people that they do wonderful service, but when it comes to, getting paid or asking for it, they choke. Yeah. So I did this class specifically for them so that they could get out of this thing of asking for money. And I had the different list of things, because my thing was like, okay, save your money, like all the things that you save, your budget, like all the practical stuff. Yeah. They didn't care about that. They were more focused on this list of things. They said, yep, I'm number 1 and I'm number 3 and I'm number 7. That's my pattern. And and then I started looking at it, and then I just looked at it as a list, because I wrote down like, yeah, people have this way, this way, this way. And I just said, hey, this is a list, we could clear it, but the main thing is your budget and your debt and your credit and because that's real money. Yeah. They did not want to hear about real money. They wanted to know, like, okay, all these things, I could see myself in this list that you just gave me. And then so it developed into this working with people and get them out of that. So like, for instance, one of the big list is, okay, we're Black people. Yep. Obviously. It's very, very
yep.
to say that. Okay, so if you start looking at it, if you are a Black person, and specifically in this society, if you're a Black male, chances are you'll make less money. It's just a fact of life. You wind up
And
making.
you're talking about
It's the
other
way the society is set up. Yeah,
okay.
than other cultures.
Yep.
It's the way the society is set. If you're a female, you're going to make less money than a male. If you're a Black person, specifically a Black male, you have higher rates of unemployment. You make less money. You're less likely to get accepted for credit. You know, like all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a societal impact that also tells you that, you know, you're not good with money. So just by being your race would impact how you are with money, but it's not something that's going on in your head. It's something that you are experiencing because it happens in the real world. But at the same time, you've internalized it. So you've already like, man, it's the man. I'm not going to get it. I'll never get that job. And so you have this pattern that you've internalized about how you identify yourself just by being a Black male in society. So I look at how race would impact and F up your whole money situation. Now, there's some people that overcome that and say, no, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to buy into that. But people buy into it. It's like also if we hear there's inflation or the economy is bad or the economy is good, so people automatically go, well, the economy is bad, so that's why my money's all effed up.
Yep.
You get what I'm, so we already like preset ourselves for this. And I say, is that true? Now, the video that David told us to watch, you know, he was talking about how he worked in the mall at the kiosks, he sold t-shirts and all of that. And he talked about these fluctuations that would happen based on shopping. You know, like, okay, October is a slow month. Then Black Friday, you make some money. Then it gets slow again in December. And then around Christmas, you make some money. So you already think in your mind that, you know, I'm at the mercy of these circumstances of time and money. It doesn't have to be that. Even if it's the economy is bad. In 2008, when everything crashed and we were in that big recession, I made more money in 2008 than the previous year. I'm like, what economy? I'm doing really good. So it's a construct and it's a concept. So I have this one client. She has this business and she, you know, she's doing very well in her business. We helped clear up a lot of her patterns that she had around money. But then mid-October, she's like, and I'm like, why are you down? And I'm not going to make my quota for the year. And I said, why not? It's only October. And she says, well, you know, December is coming up. She sold nutritional supplements. And she said, normally this time of the year, the business is dead. Normally. You know, because everybody's shopping for Christmas and doing all that. So she already had it set in her mind that she wasn't going to make the money because she knew it was going to be a slow, you know, next 2.5 months is going to be slow because of the season she's in. And I said, is that really true? Maybe it's just a construct. It might not be true at all. So I challenged it and I did her some creation work around that with her. She called me back and she said, Akyiaa, you won't believe it. She said, I have been more busy since you did that, because we just said that doesn't have to be true. We cleared up that pattern of feeling and energy that she had about it. She called me up and she said, not only did she make more money during that season, she surpassed her quota after we cleared it up. And she was going on vacation. So I think it was like her last day in her practice was the 21st of December. She said, Akyiaa, on the 21st, right before Christmas, when it's supposed to be dead, you know, you have a medical practice, you have anything outside of retail, it's dead. She said, I made more money in that one day than I made in 5 years in business. Like 3 or 4 days before Christmas, which is crazy. But that's what I said, like the young man that he said the floodgates just opened up, because it's about clearing up these patterns that we think is true, but they don't necessarily need to be true.
I agree 100%. And the church I go to, which I reference all the time on this podcast, Seeds of Greatness Bible Church in Newcastle, Delaware. I didn't realize the patterns and the things that even my thought life that were creating my environment. And then
your reality.
Correct. Yeah. And then once I realized that, it allowed me to think different at work, because I do sales. So the the pattern is that December's slow because nobody wants to buy because it's Christmas time.
It's Christmas. Yeah.
Certain times of the year is slow because of
Some reason.
who said that?
People on vacation.
Yeah.
All these.
But people say that, not you. It doesn't have to be your reality. And as soon as I stopped thinking that and saying that, because my belief is that when you say a thing, you're sowing it, and that's what you have belief for, whatever you're saying, negative or positive. So when I stop saying those things, and then sometimes I'm not going to say I do it all the time. There are certain times where that does happen, and the thought comes in my head, and I make sure I don't say it.
Exactly.
Because now I'm sowing it if I do say it. So that what you're saying is spot on, and you don't have to even if people believe that around you, people around you believe it, that doesn't have to be your reality.
Exactly.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. And so, like I said, with money, it's like it's not the right time to make money. My race, there's a victim mentality around money. There's, like some people won't do things because they don't want to be called a sellout. So if I do something that's going to benefit me, people are going to think I'm a sellout because I'm making this deal, I'm doing, so there are so much stuff that people, they just impact their money without thinking about it. I don't want people to think that I'm full of myself, so I'll make less money. We have women that they don't want, because the man is supposed to be the head of the house. Like one of my clients, she didn't, like her business was going. And it was like she would slam on the brakes. So I'm working with her and I'm like, your business is going fine, but I see like you're driving a car and you just all of a sudden slam on the brake when it starts to accelerate. And I'm like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, it's something to do with being married and being a wife and being a good Christian woman. And the man should make more money because he's the head of the house. And she's like, yeah, I don't want to make more money than my husband. And her husband was fine with it. That was what was funny about it. Her husband like, let her make as much money as she wants. That'll take some of the pressure off of me.
Listen,
but she felt like that, and that was impacting her money. She'll see her business growing and she'll shut it down. It'll grow again and she'll shut it down because she was not being a good Christian woman and being, subordinate to her husband and all that. And she made more money than him.
Listen,
it's crazy. That's why I said we will screw up our money in all kinds of ways.
Yeah, and self-sabotage and the money that you bring in, male or female, is contributing to the house.
Exactly.
Make more money. It's fine. I joke to my wife all the time, like, yo, man, you got to because she's an entrepreneur as well, part-time entrepreneur. I'm like, yo, man, you got to sell these books. So and get these speaking gigs so I can be a stay-at-home dad. So I could and my son's 12 years old, so he can kind of take care of himself. I'm like, yeah, I need to take care of my son so you can go do your thing. So stay-at-home dad. Come on, man. Let's get this train moving.
But then what's funny about it, I think that's a good thing for you to do because this is the age where boys really need that male modeling in front of them. Yeah. So, in ancient societies, the boys stayed with the men when they got like, and that's why they have bar mitzvahs and stuff like that, because you're going into manhood, because he's turning 13 and getting around that age. And that's when they, the community of men came around boys and supported, showed them what it was to be a man. Yeah. So maybe a good thing that you're thinking like, hey, I need to spend more time with my son at this stage of his life, because he's not at the stage where he needs mama as much. He needs father more. Right. So that's actually a very good thing that you're doing that. So it could be money, I found, could affect you in many ways. It could be things you learned from your family, the family attitude towards money and their relationship. A lot of times when I see people with money patterns, I always ask them, who handled money like that? Was it your father or your mother? Which one in your household handled money the way you're handling it right now? Because we learn that we absorb those things. So it could be a family issue. It could be a societal issue, like we say race and sex, and that society tells you need to be this way or this is your role. So that could impact your money. The other thing I see impact money could be yourself, just the way you feel about yourself. Because money is nothing more than a reflection of you. what you feel you deserve out of life is how money reflects. Like your business, your entrepreneurship, your is just an image of how you project yourself into the world is through your business.
Yeah.
You know, I show up as Akyiaa, you know, people say, okay, you're a healer, you're an acupuncturist, you're a teacher. So people see me through my business as this is who she shows up as.
Mm.
Whereas money is how you feel about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how money is. So if you're not feeling good about yourself, your money's gonna get kind of wonky.
Yeah.
When you're feeling great about yourself, it seems like the money, you know, it's just coming from everywhere. So money reflects how you feel about yourself. There's also a spiritual aspect to money. I have worked with people who have like money is the root of all evil. It's one of the things we've heard. But then people also believe that money is dirty. Money, you know, if I'm a spiritual person, I don't need money.
Okay.
You know, those type of concepts around money.
Yeah.
And spirituality. You know, whether you may have taken this vow of poverty, like on some level of your spirit or your soul, you came back into this body with this same concept that, you know, I was a nun in a past, and you know, I have this vow of poverty. So people live their life spiritually, live their life based on that or drawn to those things, and it impacts their money because you're not really living the life of a nun. You're just, you know, you have a 9 to 5 and you have kids to raise, but it's like I can't never get the money together because there's something wrong with money. So I have this aversion to it because there's this spiritual component to money. And then people don't realize the fifth component I see with money is that money in of itself have an energy to it. Money is attracted to certain things and repelled by certain things. So also understanding the energy of money. So those are the things I look at when I look at the 17 ways that people F up their money, is to look at all these different aspects. And what I do, I apply the creation work to it. Like I gave the example of those people that, you know, find out exactly what it is, be precise about what it is, and then we clear up that pattern. And after that, you know, that lady that had the concern about her husband, her business went smoothly. People would feel I'm not qualified. So because, you know, like people have, I'm a newbie, I'm new in this business, so I need to charge less money. Or I don't have these credentials and these degrees, so I can't charge money. And they may be better than the person with the degree.
Yeah.
With that skill set. But then they're like, well, I don't have this. So people make these criteria why they cannot have money. So it's like all of these things that people do around money.
I got a question. And this is one thing that I think one of the young ladies, matter of fact, no, this was on the live book read this morning, that I forget, my brain's going all over the place. But anyway, we were on a call in the last day or so, and somebody brought up the fact that and I wanted to know, was this one of the ways people F up their money? I believe that it is that people have a tendency through the generational patterns of taking care of people that they probably shouldn't be taking care of. Meaning family members.
And it was a woman?
What's that?
It was a woman? It was a woman, right?
I think it was.
It's a girl, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very common thing for women.
So let me ask you this: is that one of the 17? Is that one of your 17 ways?
Just by the nature of being a woman, it's not only that if you're a woman you make less money in society, but then women were taught to be the caretakers throughout all time.
Sure.
Taught to be the caretaker. So your job was to take care of other people, and your job was also to sacrifice. So sacrifice yourself and who you were, so that whether it's the children, your husband, your parents, everybody else got taken care of. So maybe this is why you're hearing so much talk around women about self-care.
Yeah.
Because you were last.
Yeah.
And you may see that in your mother and grandmothers and stuff, that they were last. They were the last ones to be taken. Everybody else had to be taken care of first. So that's a very common trait amongst women because it's been passed down through the generations.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And we're literally taught that, you know, everybody else's needs comes before yours.
I never thought about that. And now that you're saying it, it's again pulling the veil off of my eyes. Because my thing is that if you're taking care of somebody to your detriment, eventually you're
Oh,
going to be
because you part of it was sacrificing. You're
yeah,
doing
you're
good
going
when you sacrifice.
correct, and
That's
you're going to be
that's the
no
whole
good to
part of being
anybody.
a good person and a woman. Yeah, it didn't matter. As long as you were sacrificing, that made you more holy and godly
Yeah,
because you were given the sacrifice, because Christ sacrificed himself. So now I'm closer to God because I'm also sacrificing. So
yeah,
it was, there's a lot of stuff that's tied up. Like when I start doing this work with people, you'd be surprised the amount of stuff that starts to unravel and they'll go like, oh my God, I didn't realize I had this. But you don't realize it because it's so normalized.
yeah,
You've been doing it your whole life. It may be dysfunctional, but you've been doing it your whole life. So you don't even notice it.
yeah. So the stuff that you're doing, I applaud because like me, I'm pretty black and white. Like 1 + 1 = 2, 3 + 3 = 6, and that's what it is. Like
Mhm.
to go to go deep into things and untangle the different things that need to be untangled to get people free is cool because my thought was is always growing up is we were not poor, but we didn't
Mhm.
have money, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. But I knew that I didn't want to live my life that way. I didn't know how to do it, but I just didn't. I knew I wanted more than what I
You made
saw.
a choice. Yeah, you
Yeah,
made a
I
choice.
need my environment in my neighborhood and so forth. So I just knew that I had to make different decisions if I wanted those things, which is black and white to me.
Mhm.
If I don't want to be a drug addict, I'm not going to do drugs. Or if I don't
Mhm.
want to be alcoholic, I'm not going to drink.
Mhm.
Different things like that. So I think to me, it's with money and things like that. It's easy because it's black and white. Because I remember what I saw, and I just knew, hey, if I see this, do the opposite.
Mhm. But
Or
the
go ahead,
but
no,
the
no, go ahead.
thing with you is what I see is that you have a level of clarity and determination that not a lot of people have.
Okay, that's fair.
You're very clear. I'm going to do this, and you're clear what it is, and then you have this level of discipline and determination that you just follow through on that. Not a lot of people have those qualities, unfortunately.
And
So
that's the
that's why it appears black and white to you. Like
yeah,
this is like look it in somebody's body and it's like, oh yeah, it's their liver, it's the left lobe of the liver. I could see it. To me that seems simple and easy. To most people,
yeah,
they're like, what? How in the and for you to have the discipline, like, yeah, you just put aside your money, you save your money. I want to get a house, I'll get it in 2 years because I could figure out and budget it out, and boom, 2 years I have exactly what I said I was going to do. And some people, they don't have the level of clarity,
yeah,
and they have all of, like I said, all this stuff that I have to go in and untangle for them.
yeah,
All that stuff is running their life. It's like this program running in the background constantly. So every time they make a move forward, they kind of pull back. It's like the little cartoon with the person running real fast on the rubber band and then it snaps them back.
yeah,
It's like they go so far, but you haven't cut that rubber band, so they snap right back and they go back into all those old patterns and they get frustrated and mad at themselves.
yeah,
But it's this, like when I'm saying I clear up the energy, like people say you got to do this and say this, there's not a lot of talking in what I do with people because I'm intuitively looking and seeing what needs to be cleared out. And what the best way I could describe it, you remember chemistry, they talk about the bonds, things are held together by these bonds.
yeah.
And for me it's like we're breaking a bond.
Yep, exactly.
And so when that bond is broken, then that configuration changes.
Yeah,
So what I'm doing with people is like breaking these various, it's like going in and breaking these various chemical bonds that they have that's holding this stuff together, because this stuff is being held together.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And that's one of the things I'm learning along the way is that like in what I do with other people, um, you have to give people grace too, because in my head, I'm thinking it's easy, but also you have to know that everybody is not you. Even though you operate one way, like I operate one way, I, in my head, think that everybody is operating that way until you talk to them and realize that they're not. And you're like, well, if you know this, well, why are you not doing it? But you got to, and I'm just talking to myself. You got to give people grace and understand that everybody doesn't operate the way you do. And I learned this along the way. I mean, I've been doing this thing for years, but along the way, I'm kind of realizing like everybody doesn't operate the way you do, and you got to, meet people where they are, wherever they are, and get them to that clear moment, that aha moment, like, oh, I was doing this all this time. Oh, let me
Yeah.
just change it just a degree or two, and it's going to set me on a path, like we talked about earlier, how things are going to work moving forward.
And part of the reason why I want to do this course, because the bulk of the clientele that I have, I would say, are like middle to pretty affluent people.
Mm-hmm.
But they still have these struggles. Even with all the affluence, they live in beautiful communities, beautiful homes. They could take great vacation. They could do all of these various things.
Sure.
But they still have these internal struggles.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm putting together as a course for people that feel that may really have some serious struggles with money, because people really believe the struggle is real. We even have a saying, the struggle is real.
Yeah.
Because that's how we believe. Just like we talked about the person that believed it was going to slow because it's Christmas. Everybody's shopping at the mall. They're not going to spend money in my business. That level of belief that we have, that we've made so real and turned it into our reality, is something that could be easily broken. So that's part of the reason why I want to do that course, because then it makes it more affordable and more people have access to it, that they could start to break that up. And I actually do the creation work with them during the course.
Yeah.
So that wherever they're stuck, whatever is going on with them, we're breaking up all those bonds. So people, when I've done the course previously, people will come back and say, wow, this money came through, or I was having some problems getting this inheritance, and then I'll just call, it's there. They told me to send it to the bank. It's like stuff like that normally happens afterwards, because you've broken the stuff that's holding all of that stuff together. You've broken it apart, so then things could just flow more easily and naturally for them. One of the things that I've been doing with people with this is to get them, like you say, out of their own way.
Yeah.
Like people don't realize how much power they actually have within themselves.
I agree.
And like you said, we're talking about words and how that's creating your reality, and you're very careful in your mind and clear. I'm not going to use that word. I'm not going to put that thought out there because I know it'll create reality. People don't realize that they have that level of power within themselves. And that's the whole focus on the course, to get them to be able to see that part of themselves, that they are generating and creating that, and they actually have some control over that to change it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big part of what the course is.
Yeah. And I think for me, it happened for me going to church and getting connected to, reading my Bible and different things like that, and just seeing different examples of what to do, what not to do, and then looking back, being aware of my surroundings, like we learned in Alchemist, like being aware of your surroundings, and your surroundings are telling you everything that you need to know on different moves that you need to make, and just having that clarity of where I want to be in my life and things like that. It made it for me so much easier. And I just wish that everybody would be clear on what they're here for specifically, because I think that would clear up a lot of depression.
Yes.
A lot of different things that they're going through, because a lot of people just don't know why am I here? And if they knew that, then they could keep walking towards that thing. Whether they have issues or whatever along the way, you still know, and you're clear on why you're here and what you need to do while you're here. Because life is short.
And the thing about having that level of clarity creates a lot more ease in your life.
Correct.
And so what I was given, I never really got exactly what it meant, because like I said, this was something that downloaded to me There's no way that I could, say I'm going to touch somebody in their head, tell them this is what I'm seeing is happening with you, and their cancer goes away. There's no way. I don't have the power to do that. So there's something else that's operating outside of me or within them that, I can't explain what it is. It probably need to, take some people and do some research and, figure out, or maybe there is no instrument to find out exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
But for me, it boils down to that it's this level of clarity that I was told, because I was told that you're going to do this system called creation. We want you to teach people how to do it also. And not only do I want to teach people how to do it, sorry about that, it was told to me that creation was about people creating their life with clarity and with ease. Those two. And then at first I didn't understand what do they mean by clarity. Now everybody's talking about I gotta have clarity, I gotta have clarity. That's what creation does, because it clears up all these things that are distracting you. It clears up this, like a twisted ball of yarn that you've been living your life by. It clears that up for you. So now you have the clarity, like you could say, you can see what your purpose is. And when you're living in your purpose, there's ease there. It's the thing that makes you the happiest to do in the world. And it flows with ease. Right. So now it makes more sense when they said creation is about creating your life with clarity and ease.
That's awesome. And before we wrap, I wanted to go back because you talked about it and it jotted my memory. When I found my purpose, it was, I say by accident, even though I know it wasn't by accident. I was driving to a bachelor party, and headed down and just driving on the highway, and I hear nobody's in the car with me, and I hear I want you to help people, and I'm looking around like there's nobody in the car with me.
How it works. That's your intuition.
And I'm driving, and then I hear it again, and then I just start bawling, crying, because I didn't know what was going on. And I believe that that's what God told me to do. And ever since then, in one way or another, I've been operating in that thing. And when different businesses and ventures or things that I'm getting into, with real estate, like I know that I could be charging a lot more higher than what I'm charging as far as rent goes, but it works for what I'm doing. I can help people that way, not hitting people over the head, not being a slumlord, taking care of issues that need to be taken care of. Stock market. I'm learning about the stock market. Now I'm teaching other people so it can free them and help them. So podcasts, same thing, giving information out for free, and everything that I'm learning, take it. Here, it's yours. And it's, even though it was scary at first to me, because I don't like talking in front of people and things of that nature. But the more I do it, the easier it gets. So you're saying like, it's flowing now, and it's I feel like things are flowing for me in what I'm doing, operating in my purpose. And when we read the end of that book, that The Alchemist, and he talked about there's millions of people out there that don't know why they're even here, or that was the basic premise of what he was saying. It made me upset, because I'm like, my life is not perfect by any stretch, but I feel like that I'm in a good position because I know what I'm here for, and a lot of people don't. And it made me sad, because I feel like if people knew, then it would brighten up their life to a degree, whether they had a bad day or not, or multiple bad days, they would still be able to, move along because they know why they're here.
And like what you're saying about when you're not following your purpose, there's that parable about the talents that, use your talents, you're given more.
Yeah. Yep.
You don't use your talent, you bury them under the tree, you go through suffering.
That's a fact.
And so that whole thing about purpose is that when you're not doing your purpose, you feel this resistance. That's what we call the struggle. You're feeling all this resistance. So the minute you allow yourself to follow that purpose, even though it may seem scary, it may not make any sense to you. And let me say this about purpose. I was listening to Oprah Winfrey, and I don't think she was actually talking about purpose. She was just talking about her life in general. She started out as a news anchor, which made sense, radio, now you're on the news. And she said what she loved, she had a hard time being a news anchor. What she loved was to sit there and listen to people tell her stories. And then she got her TV show. So this is how things work with people's purpose. She knew that's what she loved to do. That's the thing that made her the happiest, was to sit there and listen to people's stories. And when she was a little girl, she said she knew she wanted to be on TV. She didn't know why. She's like, I want to be on TV, just listen to people tell me stories. That was her, that popped in her head. Yeah. That's what she did with her life and became so successful with it. So a lot of times when people hear their purpose, because if you look at Oprah, she's not like the made for TV model type of person that they would choose, especially in the 80s when she started. Yeah. If you weren't, tall and slender and had long flowing hair and all of that stuff, you were not really getting on TV. Oprah didn't meet any of those criteria. But she got on TV and she had the most successful show. And then she said one time, like we talk about God speaking to us, she said, she was on TV and they were doing all that sensational thing. That's when they had that whole Jerry Springer, and that was her competition. Jerry, that all that craziness. Oh. And, they had to do a lot of negative, sensational stuff. And then she made a decision, like, I can't do all this negative stuff. I'm going to do positive things on my show. And everybody told her she was crazy. Like, nobody want to hear all this positive. Everybody want to hear all the negative and all the sensational stuff and all the drama. And that's what people are interested in. And she says, no, I'm going to listen. This is what my spirit is taught. We need to go positive. And her doing that made her the most successful talk show ever. She listened to it, even though it was contrary to everything that was known to work. And a lot of times that's why people don't want to follow their purpose. They're afraid because everything in the world is telling you no. Like when I decided to do creation, I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm touching people's heads. They seem to be changing. Something seems to transform their life. I'm not doing anything personally. I'm just doing this. There's no way that I could just say, okay, I'm going to touch these points on your head and tell you what I see. And then, you come back and tell me all these things, even to the point one guy, brought his grandmother, she was dying. The doctors didn't know why she was dying. He said, I remember Dr. Azula said, just do her creation. I did. And she recovered. It's like stuff like that was happening that was, border on being miraculous. Yeah. But I'm like, I don't know. It's just happening. I can't tell you why it's happening, but we have story after story after story of all these things happening. And so there's something else at work. God is at work. There's something else bigger than us that's at work. But, when I brought it to people, I said, well, I'm doing this thing called creation. And they kind of go, creation? Yeah. I was like, but my conviction is that's the word I was given. Yeah. Like people tell me, well, change it, call it this instead, call it that. So people can, I said, no, that's the word that I was given and that's what I'm going with. I'm not being, if I was given a different name, I'd be using that name, but that's the name that when I heard it in the meditation, I heard creation. So that's what I'm going with. That's non-negotiable. I can't change it to make people understand. I can't do that because I'm not the one that came up with this. Like you said, when you were told you're here to help people and you heard that while you were driving. And I want to say that there was this tape, and I'll send it to you. It's this short video with Michael Jackson. And somebody was asking, well, how you come up with your songs and your music and all of this stuff? And he said, I don't sit with sheet music at the piano trying to write music. He says, no, I'm driving down the highway. And all of a sudden I'll hear this beat in my head. And then he starts I can't sing like him. So, he starts to do the beat that he's hearing. And then he said, then I'll go. And he didn't know how to read music or anything. He would go and he'll talk to his sound guy and he'll say, and he'll, do the beat and he'll do this instrument. And he said, the horns sound like this and this sounds like this. He'll hear it all. That's his intuition. speaking to him.
Yeah.
And then they said, well, how are you able to? He said, it's just God. He said, I can't tell you, it just comes to me. And Mozart and everybody that have made these big symphonies will tell you it just came to me. Every single inventor. How did you invent this? It just came to me. Tesla, everybody, it just came to me. Yeah. That's what intuition is. So when I tell people I use intuition, everybody uses their intuition in a different way.
Yeah.
Whether it's music to create art, and everybody tells you it just came to them. They just saw it, they just heard it, they just felt it. That's all it is.
Yeah. And like I said, man, I think once people get it and they start operating in that thing and continue to walk in it, that's when life will get good for everybody. Everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Because everybody's flowing, everybody's operating in their purpose, and then different people get affected by you. Again, exactly. Back to the book, they talk about when you start changing, your environment changes as well.
It does.
so
around you, because remember, you're the one creating this reality. This is your world that you're creating. So when you shift that within yourself, that reality around you begins to shift also.
Correct. Yeah. Akyiaa, this has been a very, very good conversation. This has been a very, very good conversation, and I appreciate you being on here. I learned a lot about you, and actually what you do, how you do it, because I had one thought in my head of how you do it, and it's completely different.
Yeah, most people do. They think you're doing Reiki, you're like talking to people, it's a mindset thing. And I'm like, no, the reason why I can't do the mindset thing is because the person has to think, and the problem is within their thinking.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Yep. You can't solve it with your thinking.
Absolutely.
Because you just don't know, you're not aware of it. So you can't think yourself through it, because the things that you think about are things that you actually know. So this is stuff that they're unaware of. They don't know that this is operating in the back. It's my job to find it, or the people that I've trained, it's their job to find what that is that's holding this whole thing together. So you can't think your way through it. So a lot of like the mindset, you're there, you're talking to somebody and you think it might be this, or this might make sense, that this may seem obvious that it might be that. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with those things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because otherwise you could have changed it. If you could think through it, you could have changed it already, but it's still there. So it can't be that. That's the reason why, I came to that conclusion when I was working with patients and I'm doing their acupuncture, I'm doing their herbs, I'm doing these other treatments with them, and it's not changing. Then I came to the conclusion, then that can't be what it is. Because we've tried all of that. Nothing's happening. It's got to be something else. And that's what creates, we find that something else that's keeping you stuck there.
So let me ask you this. If somebody did want to work with you, and join creation, I'm assuming that's how you phrase it.
Have a creation session, I say.
Yeah. How can they do that with you?
They can reach me. I have the Azula creation. They could send me a DM. I'm on, and it's also the same on Facebook. So both IG and Facebook, they could reach out there and send me a message. And I will get back in touch with them. It may take me a little while because sometimes I'm not always checking stuff. I'm not one of those people that check it every day all the time. So it may take me a few days to get back in touch with them, but that would be the easiest way for people to reach me right now. I am, like I told you, I'm in another program. So we're working on building out the website and doing all these other things so people will have, will be much easier to find. So I would have all of that up right now, but right now IG and Facebook will probably be the easiest way.
Very good. Well, Akyiaa, I appreciate you again for being on Wealth is a Journey podcast. I'm sure that people will get all the nuggets that and that this conversation was actually really, really good. And I definitely appreciate you being on here. I will put your information below so everybody knows how to find you. But again, do you have any parting words or anything like that you want to tell the people before we wrap up?
Okay. I think we have bought into this erroneous belief that everything has to be hard. And we have a lot of fear. I see a lot of fear in society. And, like we talk about, we hear things. We were just talking about that. And the fear, I was told that the fear is just great marketing. People that want to stay in power, how they stay in power is by making everybody else be fearful, because that's the thing to motivate and control people through fear. So they said fear, like people say it's not real and all of that. They say, no, it's great marketing. They've marketed so much that people actually believe it now. They believe that that is true and that is real. So this whole thing about struggle and fear and all of that, you have to realize none of that is real. And just like Shay is saying, he was able to look through all of that and see what was true for him, stay on course, stay focused, be clear about that, and move forward to whatever it is. As crazy as it might sound to you, I mean, if I've said, well, that sounds crazy touching people's head, and creation is crazy because I don't understand how it works. I don't see why this would make a difference in anybody's life. But if I didn't do that, from the ladies who no longer have her cancer, the gentleman who was able to bring his grandmother back from the brink of death, that she's still celebrating with her family. The gentleman that, was able to overcome his money issues and feel like a man again in his life. I would not have been able to touch and impact all those people's lives if I just dismissed it and say, well, that doesn't make any sense to me, so I'm not going to do it. And a lot of times your purpose won't make any sense to you. You wouldn't have Oprah if she said, I'm some young Black girl from Mississippi who's going to put me on TV to listen to stories, and the impact that she's made on people's lives. And the music that Michael Jackson was able to create, because he heard different beats and rhythms in his head that nobody never heard before. But he didn't say, well, that doesn't sound like the music anybody else is playing. Let me not play that. So this is what you're given to do, and you should follow through and do it no matter how much it doesn't make sense to you, because this world is waiting on you for exactly the uniqueness that you bring to it.
Man, that's it. I couldn't say it any better.